Hello, and welcome to the Rhythm Changes podcast. I'm your host, Will Chernoff, and this episode is sponsored by 12th Street Sound, a recording studio in New Westminster. I've done a lot of projects at 12th Street Sound. There's my first album, Aim to Stay. There's my EP, 12th Street Quintet, named after the studio. And there's my EP, Hometown, as well as another one that I still haven't even released that's coming out later this year. I've trusted Anthony Senarini, who's the engineer and owner at 12th Street, to mix and record and work on these projects with me. I always appreciate what he does. His services are of great value, and he makes me feel really at home as an artist and like I have the space to tell the story that I need to tell when I put out new music. So if you're working on something this year for 2022 and you want a place where you can make an affordable recording that stands up to the best of the best, go to 12thstreet.ca/booking and tell Anthony that the RCP sent you. That's 12thstreet.ca, 12thst.ca/booking. And when you book now, tell Anthony that the RCP sent you. This episode is sponsored by Railtown Mastering, an audio mastering studio in Vancouver. Andrew Downton is the engineer there, and he's my top recommendation for you to get your music mastered in 2022. Mastering is the final, all-important step for when you're putting out music, where you finish the recorded works that you've already tracked and mixed. Andrew has an excellent studio setup for this. He's a trained professional who has worked with all kinds of people in Canadian music, from people like myself all the way up to Bryan Adams and who knows who else. If you want to learn more about what Andrew does and whom he's worked with, you can visit railtownmastering.com or find Railtown Mastering on social media. And when you're ready to inquire with Andrew about getting your music mastered in 2022, contact him directly at andrew@railtownmastering.com. That's Andrew at railtownmastering.com. Email him today to set up your mastering in 2022, or check out Railtown Mastering on social media to learn more.
At the beginning, I really wasn't even sure. I just thought to myself, oh, I just made this big decision. And every day I'd have moments where I was like, do I want to do this? Do I want to take it this seriously? But then I realized this is like a calling to me.
Happy Wednesday, and coming to you from New Westminster, BC, it's the Rhythm Changes podcast, the only weekly interview show about jazz and creative music in Canada. On this show, I bring you my favorite kind of conversations from the working world of music, where I get to hang with an artist and find out what they're all about. Today, I have another fan favorite from the Capilano University community. He's about to present a set of music at Frankie's influenced by Ornette Coleman and Brian Blade. That's up next. Our guest today is a jazz drummer who is in his third year at Capilano University, and he is presenting a very exciting show at Frankie's called Homage on May 29th, 2022. I've been very excited to have him on for a while because I feel like he represents this new kind of energy that's coming up through Cap into the Vancouver jazz scene. He's got many more gigs coming up than just that one, and I'm excited to hear from him about what he's got planned for the month of May 2022 and beyond. So please welcome to the Rhythm Changes podcast, Arvind Ramdas.
Thank you so much for having me here, Will. It's an honor.
Thanks for coming out to New West. Let's start with Homage, because that's the big gig, that's your focus. This is an exciting moment for you because, if I'm not mistaken, it's your first time as a leader at Frankie's, right?
Right.
So let's start with the simple stuff. Who are you playing with, and how did you decide to put this particular band together?
I'm playing with Brad Turner, who'll be playing trumpet.
Nice.
John Bentley on tenor saxophone. David Caballero on bass.
Mm-hmm.
David Skula on guitar.
Wow.
And myself on drums.
Well, that's quite a band.
Thank you. The reason I'm choosing to play with these great musicians is because Brad Turner is such a hero to me. I've been listening to him before I even stepped foot out of my home in India, just practicing drums in my garage all the time. But I've been listening to him since then. At that time, I just thought, oh, he's just another insane musician from New York or something like that. I had no idea he was Canadian or any of that stuff.
Really?
So, and then, we made a trip to Vancouver with my family because my older brother was graduating at VFS University. So
Vancouver Film School?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, okay.
VFS. So we got the TD Jazz Festival for the first time on that day. And I saw Brad Turner play with the band. I'm not sure which band it was really. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I remember being absolutely blown away, and it was a surreal moment for sure. And then I found out he teaches here at Capilano University, and my older brother's in Vancouver, so it just makes sense to move out here too. That's how I got here in the first place. So Brad, yes, I look up to him immensely, and I've been learning from listening to him for years now. It's just incredible, his lectures and how much he teaches me at least. And John Bentley, I found out about him when I moved to Canada, and I've seen him play a few shows. And the moment I heard him play, I told myself I want to play with this guy one day.
Do you remember where you first heard him?
Actually, it was funny. I just seen videos of him on the internet,
Oh, yeah.
and then I caught him for the first time ever at Tangent when they opened up again before they closed.
Oh,
with
yeah.
Brad Turner. You were there at the show, I think.
Yeah, so this is in like the fall, like about 6 months ago now, the
Right.
kind of first relaunch,
Totally,
right?
exactly. Yep.
Yeah, he played, I think, the first gig, and didn't Brad play too?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so
Brad
there you
was
go.
on trumpet, it was John Bentley, and it was Bernie Ari on drums and Andre on bass.
Yeah.
Incredible gig, and I've always wanted to play with him. I just really look up to him as well. He's done so much here in Vancouver, and he's been in New York, played there too, and studied under Kenny Wheeler for a bit. So it's just so much to learn from a great master like John Bentley. He's just super exciting to listen to, super exciting to just watch him play with an entire band, and all the communication that happens on a whole other wavelength, and such a nice guy. I haven't really met him in person yet and had a conversation,
Oh, okay, yeah.
but I've been back and forth with him on email and whatnot for the Frankie's thing on the 29th, and he's just so open to everything that I have planned for this event. So
Yeah. And then you got Dave on guitar.
Yep.
Have you played much with him yet?
I've played a lot, quite
Yeah.
a bit with Dave
Nice.
School, I'd say. I first played with him when he hired me to play this trio set with him and Dan Howard on bass, and I was playing drums at Water Street Cafe, and that was the first time we ever played together. Then we've played Tangent recently. I have a quartet with him and Ben Frost and Dave Caballero and myself.
I heard that
So,
one too. I went
yeah,
to that
you were
Tangent
there?
one. Yeah, that was a
Yep.
good one. And then, of course, you've got David Caballero on the bass, who's at Cap with you. And even from my perspective, just coming in as a listener, I feel like you guys have a certain bond as a rhythm section duo, as a drummer and a bass duo. Do you have any particular memory of the first time or the first couple times or at the very beginning of you getting to know him?
It was quite funny when I look back on it now. It's the first day of school, first year, when all the, what do you call that stuff that happens before?
Like an orientation?
Yes, when
Yeah.
all the orientation, all that's over with, and now it's the first legit day of school,
Yeah.
and we had a combo class, and in this class, Brad Turner was our combo teacher, and he was arranging dividing the class into different groups, different combos, different bands and stuff, and he was the first bass player I was put into a group with ever in my first day
All right.
at Capilano, and he played the electric bass at the time. He hadn't even
Oh,
played
really?
the upright in his life. Yeah,
Wow, I
he's
didn't
fairly
know that.
new to it. Yeah,
Huh.
and yeah, we just connected instantly. Like there were things that we were playing together that he could hear and I could hear, and we got really excited listening to each other while playing with each other. Ever since then, I'd like to say that we're like brothers, as they'd say, but we're very close, and we've been playing together for 3 whole years now. It's just been great, man. He's constantly kicking my ass, driving me to get better, and he's such a great player, such a great human being, and it's always a fun ass whooping learning experience playing with him.
I've always heard him sound good with different kinds of people. I've
Oh,
heard him
100%, yeah.
beyond even just playing with you, but I have heard the two of you play together, and you play with him in the 10 Penny Trio. You recently played at Tyrant. I heard you at Water Street playing with Ardashir on sax, and that was quite a cool gig.
Yeah, we did one of Frankie's too right after that with
Yeah.
Ardashir sitting in.
Yeah. And then leading up to Homage, I want to know a little bit about the music that you're playing there, but there's other gigs that you're playing along the way to that one. You're playing at the Second Floor Gastown with Atlee King on Vibes. You're also playing at Jazz Evensong with a different group. But let's start with that gig with Atlee at the Water Street at the Second Floor Gastown. Who's playing with you there?
So that's a trio led by Atlee King. He's it's him, it's the great Jody Prosnick on bass. I really like Jody a lot. So it's just me, Atlee, and Jody.
Nice. And you played with Atlee at his Frankie's gig, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Unconditional.
That was a special one. What about the Jazz Evensong band? Who's in that with you? Whose project is that?
I'm leading that project.
Oh, cool.
That's with Ben Frost, Ardashir, Noah, Franz Nolan, piano, David Caballero, and myself.
Nice.
Yeah, this is something. This is a group that I've been wanting to play with a lot. I mean, we've played quite a bit together already, not gigs and stuff, but just sessions. And I really like the chemistry that we have when we play together. Ben's such a great composer. He writes amazing music, and he's also such a soulful trumpet player. He's one of my favorite trumpet players in the city. I love playing with him. Essentially, if you look at it, it's 10 penny trio with Ben and Ardashi. But
Right. Yeah,
we're
with
not really going in the 10 penny direction for this one.
different kind of music. Is it original music?
No, it's mostly it's kind of like a homage in a way, but yeah, just the classics, straight ahead music, some Kenny Wheeler,
Yeah.
Art Blakey,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
When you've got a quintet. Yeah, that's good. Ben Frost is somebody who started at CAP with me. Always remember how amazing his handwriting is on his handwritten music charts. He's the best.
I've never seen anything like that in my life.
I don't know anybody else who's as good as him at that.
It's so cool how he does that.
So, for homage, you were talking just before we hit record here about how you want to get this right, how you want to deliver some repertoire here that really means a lot to you. What can you say right now about what you're going to play there?
I'm terrible at setting up surprises, so I'm just gonna one of my biggest influences in this music is Ornette Coleman. His album with that group, Change a Century. To this day, every time I hear it, it still sounds even fresher than I heard it before, and it's just that music means a lot to me. I very naturally resonate with the ideas and the expression of the music with that particular group and that particular album, the chemistry that they share.
Yeah.
But there's also other stuff that we're playing. We're playing some Kenny Wheeler. We're playing Brian Blade music from Brian Blade and the
Nice.
Fellowship. That band is one of my favorite bands, and a lot of drummers may know this already because I've spoken to them about it. But Brian Blade is my, as a musician, composer, drummer, he's my hero, number one guy or something like that.
Very nice.
He's just everything that he does. Just I connect with on a very deep level. The first time I ever heard Brian Blade and the Fellowship Band, not like I've seen them live ever, but the first video that I saw of them playing together was at the Chicago Music Exchange. That concert really blew me away. I was almost in tears. It was just so amazing, just the way he plays and his touch on the drum set. So he's also one of my biggest heroes, and so I've decided that we'd be playing. Well, I haven't mentioned the entire set list, and I'd like to keep that a surprise.
Of course.
Yeah, that's pretty much, and the bands that have got me into this music.
You mentioned Ornette, and my Ornette recall about tunes and albums is not the greatest, but I did hear you play some Ornette tunes on some gigs before. Like when I heard your most recent band at the Tangent at the end of March, I think you played an Ornette tune called Bird Food. Is that from this album that you're talking about?
That is from Change a Century, if I'm not wrong. Yeah.
So that's kind of what you're influenced by from Ornette, is his music that sounds like that from like the early 60s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes to like remembering exact dates of records and stuff like that, I sometimes I just don't pay too much attention to that. I pay more attention to the music, and I mean, I get a rough idea of when it is, but not the exact date. I don't remember it unless I tell myself, okay, I'm going to make sure I remember that it's 1962. And when I do that, it works. It's just that I don't always do that consciously.
That's okay.
So it's, yeah, that record, Change a Century, man. What else? The record with The Shape of Jazz to Come, that one. And the Lonely Woman record, I think. Oh, I think that's from The Shape of
Jazz to Come.
Yeah, that's a tune from that
album.
album.
That's the first track.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And then Brian Blade, was a huge influence on, I would say, in particular, me and my old friend Julian Jaime and a bunch of our other friends. We really enjoyed discovering him kind of around 2010 and whatever he had put out to that point. And he's made more great music since then, but we were really influenced by that kind of style too. Crooked Creek, that's a tune that we loved. I haven't seen that music live either, but I mean, I did see Brian Blade perform live because I saw Wayne Shorter Quartet, which I think is my favorite headliner Vancouver Jazz Fest gig of all time. Atlee's gig that you were on, it kind of had something that I remember from that gig, where that gig just felt like, with that Wayne Shorter Quartet music, it just kind of felt like a continuous performance all the way through. And I felt like you guys in that unconditional band were trying to catch that a little bit. Like you were leading one tune into the other and you were trying to make it feel like a continuous experience, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Atlee wanted the whole thing to be a show, you know. I mean, so did we all. We all mutually wanted that. I mean, the music was such that it could be that way too, very naturally, you know. Each tune is like a little story that keeps unfolding and flowing into the next one.
Is that what you're going to do as well with yours, with Homage?
Well, you'll be there to see.
Yeah.
And hopefully a lot more people. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's going on? We're talking here at the end of April. What's been going on with you up at CAP? I always find this an interesting month, exam season, grad recital season. There's a lot going on, right? What does it feel like up there for you right now?
Well, you know, I've been trying to keep it low key, keep myself low key. I haven't, you know, I've been playing for all my school classes and whatnot, ensembles, combos, but I've pretty much just stuck to that because I actually wanted to study for my exams and do all that stuff, you know, and get that cleared with. I've come here to study music, so that's what I'm there to do.
So when exactly did you come from India to Vancouver for the first time to live here?
To live here,
Yeah.
it was the first and only time, and I'm still here. And it was
Oh, cool.
2019, I'd say, before the fall semester of 2019. I was there maybe a week before school started or something. But I'd been to Vancouver before that when I came to visit my brother, like I said earlier.
And that's when you heard Brad.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you moved here in the summer, fall of 2019, and you started CAP right thereafter. So your whole experience of living in Vancouver has been tied to being a student at CAP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, you know, the whole reason for coming here was that and work permit, visa, and all that stuff.
Did you think at the beginning that you were going to just end up going back, that you're going to turn around, finish, and then either go back or move somewhere else? Or did you intend to stay here from like the beginning?
At the beginning, I really wasn't even sure. Like, I just thought to myself, oh, I just made this big decision. And every day I'd have moments where I was like, do I want to do this? Do I want to take it this seriously? But then I realized this is like a calling to me, you know. I came here to do this specifically, and it just took some time to kind of accept that and realize that that's the case. Today, how I feel is I really want to be here. You know, it's a great place to develop myself and learn and become the best I can possibly be if I decide to head somewhere else at some point. But right now, I'm not even thinking about that. Right now, I'm just thinking about playing with as many people as I can and learning from as many great musicians as I can. So many great musicians, as you know.
It's a great attitude. I'm particularly curious now that I know that it's this tight 3-year time of you studying at CAP, of you living here. Like, it's a big region. There's lots of gigs going on around the whole Vancouver area. Like, where have you lived during this time? Because that's a big part of it too. Have you lived in a bunch of different places? You've been in the same place? You've been close to CAP, far from CAP? Where has that been part of it for you? How's that shaped your experience here? Where have you been living?
Well, I've moved, I'd say, about 3 times.
Oh yeah.
So I stayed I stayed in a place, and then I moved out to an apartment, and then I moved back to that place, but in the basement suite now.
Okay.
So it's more or less been one place throughout the entire time, but more than one move.
Yeah. Whereabouts is it?
It's about Kingsway and Victoria Drive.
Oh, so you're kind of in the middle of everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I'm right next to Tangent.
Yeah.
I'm right next to the transit to downtown to catch any other thing going on there, Frankie's or Gastown or whatever.
Yeah. And it's not too far from CAP. Like I commuted to CAP from here to there, you know, for my year. So I recall that for sure.
Yeah, it's not bad. You know, in first year, it was like, you know, I'm coming from India, man, where there's like so much traffic and it takes about 3 hours to cover the same distance. So for me, 45 minutes in a bus in transit was a beautiful thing. You know, it's not really a hassle.
Yeah.
Unless I have a gig and I have to take my drum set, in which case, I've never tried it. I've never tried taking my drums on the transit, but, you know, show up on the 20 to downtown with my drum set.
Yeah, or like the 99 or just something very busy like that. That'd be really wild. I know Winston is the only other guy who's taken the upright bass on transit as much or more as I have. So respect to Winston for that.
David also takes his upright bass in the bus quite often, actually.
Nice.
Sometimes he tells me he waits for about 3 buses to pass by because those 3 are completely full and there's no space for him and his bass.
Oh, I remember those days.
The 4th final bus is an empty bus. And
yeah, it depends where you live, I guess. Yeah, you could be hopping on at a busy place. So your time in India took you to like your late teens, early 20s kind of area. Is that about right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say so. I already did university in India before coming here. I studied visual communication, so that covered like film,
Oh, okay.
graphic design.
So that sounds similar to what your brother came to Vancouver to do when he came to Vancouver Film School. So you're both into that.
Yeah, but when he came to Vancouver Film School, he came to do sound design for films. Still,
Oh,
still got to do with films, but more sound related, specific at least. But he's also a musician.
what does he play?
He plays the guitar and he sings. We actually have a band together. It's called Breakdown Panda. We have a record on Bandcamp.com.
Oh, okay, this is a good find. I didn't know about this. So,
It's some of the hardest music I've had to play, and he's to me an incredible composer, and it's very different music. It's not jazz.
so what is it?
It's psychedelic prog rock or something like
Oh,
that, or
wow.
what do you want to
Okay,
call
yeah.
it? But very much influenced off of the 1970s English Canterbury rock scene. So bands like Cardiacs and Gong and stuff like that.
I'm interested to hear this. Yeah. And it's just you and him?
It's me, him, and three of our other friends.
Oh,
So
okay,
there's
wow.
two guitar players in the band, a bass player, drummer.
That's a pretty serious band,
It's
though.
4 people then. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll be linking to it, so believe me, I'll check it out. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's cool. So you both had, even while you were in India, you both had this interest in film and visual media, because you said visual communication is what it was
Yeah.
called that you were studying, right?
And to be honest, that was something that I did it because the worry that, oh, what happens if you don't have a degree? And out of living in India, at the time I had no idea I was ever going to leave the country, right?
Yeah.
And I finished school and everything, and I played gigs and stuff a lot. I used to play a lot of metal gigs and rock gigs and Beatles tribute gigs and stuff like that in my hometown.
So where was your city? Where was your hometown? Where were you living?
I'm from Bangalore,
Okay.
which is in a state called Karnataka,
South
in
India.
south of India. Yep. So, and that's why I did it. But then after I finished, I was like, I want to play music. I want to take this to the next level, and I want to study jazz. And at that time, it was also a phase where I was really getting into Miles Davis and Coltrane. Those are the first two guys I ever heard. Miles
Makes
Davis and
sense,
Coltrane.
makes sense, yeah.
What got me into it, and then started going back and forward in time.
Yeah,
discovering
as
a
you
lot
can.
more.
People our age have that luxury, right? Where your selection is just as far as you could possibly imagine, right? You can go and explore all the different decades, and it's easier than ever. Like, even I caught the tail end of the age where, like, Spotify launched in Canada in 2015. So that was after I went in and out of CAP for a year and
Right.
after my music education. So I caught the end of the time when we had to go find certain jazz CDs at the Vancouver Public Library Central Branch, right? And that's still true because, like, not all of our faculty at CAP's discography is on Spotify, that's for sure. Not all of it is available. So there are some kind of hidden Vancouver jazz CDs that you would still have to go find, but the selection now is just enormous.
100%. Yeah, there's so much, so many different things you can use to access music of all kinds.
Yeah. But you were already playing gigs back in India.
Yeah.
Was this a large kind of scene of people you had to play with, or were there only a couple of you who were kind of running around and playing
No, there
a bunch
was
of gigs? What was it like?
this and what happens in Vancouver was a whole new world for me, but at the time when I was there, it was a lot for me. It was like, wow, this is happening. There are people to play with. Obviously, the way you hustle for gigs is a lot very different. At least in the scene that I was playing in. It doesn't matter how good you are at your instrument. It's all the projects or bands or shows take place because a group of friends get together and have played for a while, and that's how gigs usually happen. And then you meet these people, and eventually they become your friends, and then you get to play with them. They get to play with you, but it's not like here in the jazz scene where you play with a trio in 1 week and a different quartet the next week. It's more like, this is my band, and this is my band, and this is my band.
And you only get the gigs because you're either putting on your own stuff back
Exactly.
there, or it's just pure relationship driven, where it's a group of people who want to bring certain friends of theirs and put them on, right? So it's not as, like, professionalized.
Yeah, it's
sort of.
it's
Not
not
that it's
yeah.
not professional,
Yeah.
but that it's not.
It's
as,
a different system of
Yeah.
how it works. I find this here a lot easier because there are so many people who want to do it for the love of it and not anything else. Like, ego of how tight am I with this guy, something like that. It's everybody likes to sort of encourage everyone else in the scene here.
Yeah. So what other kinds of things have you gotten the chance to play or do here, maybe outside of the jazz world or outside of the cap world? Have you looked much further than that and found other kinds of gigs too?
To be honest, no, not at all. I have a buddy. His name is Jay Christie, who you will meet at some point.
Okay, yeah.
Amazing drummer. Shout out to Jay. He studied with me at Cap for the first year, and then he dropped out of Cap. But he's a great mind in the music. He does not only play jazz, but he plays a lot of other stuff. And I feel like he sort of has some experience playing that kind of music. So I was supposed to play in a project with him that was music that wasn't jazz, like rock, punk. I really don't. I haven't looked around apart from the jazz scene, and if I have, it's only been because of things with friends.
Yeah. So it's not like all the different styles you were playing back in India. You're focused here.
Yeah,
You're focused specifically on what you most want to do.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
cool. Yeah. And then what about recording? We've talked about a lot of different performances. What kinds of recording projects have you gotten to do in this community so far?
None. I haven't recorded here yet.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah. And I find that's an interesting time to catch you for this conversation, if that's the case, because I was wondering if you had anything else in the works or coming up, but there wasn't anything coming to mind of like a recorded project that you had finished yet. So I think that's really exciting if that's all still in front of you,
Yeah, 100%. There's so much to do, just not enough time. However, Noah and David and I have been talking about wanting to record something with 10 Penny Trio. Nothing's come to fruition yet, but there's always talks that happen, and hopefully something happens.
Yeah.
I would really like to record with those guys.
There used to be, all of the kind of first generation of Cellar Live records were literally recorded live at the venue, right? So Steve Caldestad did one last year that was pretty cool. I went to night 1 and they did 2 nights and they recorded. But I'd be interested to hear more of that, of just records made of bands at Frankie's, because the level of the playing is so high, right? That's kind of a good way to get it done even now. Even though Corey doesn't have to do that anymore, he can go to whatever studio he wants, but that would still be cool to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%. If that was the case, then I guess there wouldn't be as many bootlegs or something.
So my last thing that I'm curious about to keep track of with you, of all the stuff you've got coming up, is that we'll be heading into Jazz Fest season sooner rather than later. What are you doing at the Jazz Fest, if anything, that you know of so far?
I'm off on a hiatus. I'm heading back to India.
Oh, okay.
Because I haven't seen my family in about 3 years.
Oh, wow. You haven't made a big trip back there
Yeah.
since you started. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
So that's happening in the month of June. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jazz Fest is last week of June. Yeah.
Right. I'll be back only on the second week of July, so first week of July or something like that. So
Okay.
I'm missing out on quite a bit of music. Obviously some part of me feels like really sad about that.
Oh, but there will be more.
Yeah.
There will be however many years in the future. If you figured out that you want to stay here, right? So if you're
100%.
staying here, you got all the time you want, right?
Yeah. Obviously I need to work on getting my PR, and it's all a lot of challenges coming up ahead, but I'm sure it'll work out.
Yeah. Well, I've always been really impressed by your attitude, Arvind. Whenever I see you at a gig or something, you're such a positive guy. And you've helped me ride this wave of feeling like there's so much cool stuff going on. You always help me have fun at a gig. So thanks for coming on the show. And I'm looking forward to your homage gig at Frankie's.
Can't wait to play. Thank you for having me here as always, man. You're such a good dude. And thank you for everything that you do in music, all the coverage. Without you, I think, we'd be sort of missing out on a lot of, good gigs that are happening around town. And, so thank you for always sharing the love and the music, always great. Yeah.
That's sick. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Rhythm Changes podcast. If you enjoy what we do here, I invite you to go to our website and sign up for the free weekly article that I write. This week, you can read about the band Rain City, their funk rock music, and how they're taking it on a self-produced tour across Canada starting now. I really enjoyed talking to them, and if you check that out and you enjoy what I do, you can sign up for future editions of the free weekly article right on our homepage.